Hello, my name is Patrick Hart, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Open Range. Before we get started, I got to give a special shout out to Gary Emineth, who I just passed in the hall. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to guest host yet another show. And of course, thanks to the sponsors. We definitely appreciate those dollars that you're putting in. Today, I have Cole Montoya, District 47 House candidate, and Taylor Johnson, District 35 House candidate. And we're going to get to spend some time with them. But first, I want to talk about the real issue at hand. And the real issue, of course, is that we as a society are kind of missing the real issues. Many of us have our heads so entwined with streaming services, reels, and we're just completely consumed by the media that we're missing the massive amount of wealth that's currently concentrating at the top 1%. And I may have skipped introducing myself this week, but I am a business owner. And in that role, I do believe very wholeheartedly in the reward for the efforts of your work. I do believe in hustling to get ahead. But my question today is, where does that end? And what and how much is enough? Private islands, trips to the moon, yacht contests, even waging war with private armies to capture resources simply to lower input costs. Now this week, and the problem isn't that Elon Musk has gotten $1 trillion, millions of valuation due to stock options. The problem is that while most of us are bickering about what bathroom stalls to use, about how we should salute the flag and the culture war bravado, the average citizen is absolutely being fleeced for everything they're worth. Healthcare is simply unaffordable. Home ownership for many is absolutely unattainable. Education seems only to be for the lucky ones. And everything I spend my money on lately is ludicrously expensive. And we as a society are seeing giant corporations amass record profits year over year. So while we're standing in line at Cashwise, mathing out the amount of groceries that are in our cart, hoping that there's enough limit on our card before we get to the checkout, the 1%ers are buying politicians to write tax schemes so that they can buy another yacht, so that they can buy another island. And we need to come together right now and demand solutions that restore the power of the working class. If you feel this way, if you can't seem to get ahead, if you math grocery cart items in line, then vote for a Democrat. Change is the only way to make change. So with that, I'd like to introduce my two candidates, my two interviewees this week, Cole Montoya.
Hello.
And Taylor Johnson. What do you guys think?
Just about all the money that I don't have.
Oh my gosh, right?
It's definitely disheartening. It does seem like the further you, the harder you try, the less ahead you'll end up getting.
Yeah. Taylor, thoughts?
I agree. And I think it turns into this vicious cycle of, everyone's budgets are already so squeezed. So when it comes time to invest in our public schools, when it comes time to ask folks to, take on, say, I'm thinking of the Bismarck Public Schools bond measure, even if it's only $12 a month, that's $12 that folks don't have. And I think it's a vicious cycle where now working class doesn't have the means to invest in itself.
Well, exactly. And, kind of like gerrymandering, everyone thinks that's a national issue. It's actually right here in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. When we talk about money and politics, everyone thinks Citizens United, that's a national issue. Governor Armstrong just bought, in the primary, a whole number of candidates. And quite frankly, I'm wondering if they're going to have to call him daddy when they come to session this fall. What do you guys think? Money in politics? Do we need more of it?
You always need money in politics. You just need to know where that money's going and who's spending it, right? You don't want to. Everybody should have a platform to speak if they're running. It should always be. It should be a candidate's right to be able to say whatever they need to say to as many people as possible. We just don't have systems set up for that. And unfortunately, The systems that we do have are greatly outclassed by private lobbying, and just anybody who has enough money can buy as much airspace as they want. So it makes it difficult for somebody who might actually be able to cause change to beat out somebody who's planted in money, who's already spending all of that money to lobby themselves and push their own campaigns. So it's really, it should be more of a public fund, just because we are public figures, rather than I'm a private person running for you as a private individual, if that makes sense.
Absolutely does. Taylor, what's your experience been like being a candidate and raising money?
Yeah, it's interesting to experience firsthand what the money goes towards. And I think at the end of the day, my concern is that, in a society where the scales are so tipped, and there is so much wealth inequality that you touched on in the intro, that's like the issue of money in politics is almost like a cascading effect of that, where now, money is used to amplify only a small portion of the full public discourse. And when, being on the campaign trail, I find that there's a lot more common ground than you would think based on the TV ads that you see running. And the TV ads that you see running are used to inflame and entrench the discourse in a way that just hurts all of us.
Well, yeah, it's gaslighting. It's
Yes.
getting us to argue about 2 or 3 very controversial topics, which may need fixes.
Mhm.
I'll give them that amount of credit, but those aren't the big problems. You
No.
know, that's not how to secure water rights. That's not how to make sure that AI data centers are regulated.
Mhm.
And too, and you guys, maybe, and I'm sorry to call you out, you're a couple years younger than me, and that's totally okay. But back in the day, we had the fairness doctrine, which said if a TV show has 30 minutes Republican, they have to have 30 minutes Democrat. And I appreciate Beck TV for giving us the opportunity for our views. But I think that's really what you're saying, is that everyone needs equal time, right?
Yes, everybody should be given the same amount of time slotted. I don't think that running campaign ads, even on TV, is a very well used way of spending money, especially not campaign money, because again, Trygve Hammer, he's a great guy, he's a great candidate, but I'm going to see 100 more Julie Fedorchak campaign ads just because of all the lobbying and the money that's going towards her campaign. And it's just, kind of a steamroll. It's not really fair.
Last cycle when she was running, again, against Trygve Hammer, if I get that right, I was at a bar in the middle of June in Mandan. We were having a good time on a Saturday night, and I couldn't stop watching the TV because it was nonstop Julie Fedorchak ads. And of course, in the business, I pay attention. And it was on a repeat for about the 2 hours I was there. Finally, I had to get away because I couldn't watch her pretend to build a border wall anymore. So I agree with that fairness doctrine. And now, to come back to the massive amounts of wealth, people are buying corporations that own broadcast companies, CBS. There's big mergers that going by.
That Nexstar Tegna merger was a huge. I work for Nexstar. And what we heard when that was all going down, we had this huge company national FaceTime where our CEO basically just told all of Tegna, all of the people that were bought into Tegna, basically, see you later, we own you now, and we're going to just cut you all off. But
well, no, that's interesting. And when we talk about these mergers and trust busting back in the day, is it time to start doing that again?
Absolutely. I think that it's the only way that we can protect the consumer at the end of the day and make sure that, again, we restore this balance between just working families and these corporations that can continue to just consume and consume and consume. But, at the end of the day, it's the government's job to protect us from just this absolute rigging of the scales.
No, I truly believe that. When I was out in the oil fields in 2008 to 13, there was the Wild West. There was no competition. Everyone was looking for services. And then when 2013 happened, there was kind of a reshuffling of the deck because there was a dip in oil. And we came up with this term, competition breeds fairness. Everyone had to start being a little bit more fair about the pricing, a little bit better about their service. And I think that did even the playing field. However, 13 years later, we're looking at a national system where there isn't competition. And how does that help society?
Right. Well, if they can put a cap on everything, then they'll just raise the prices how they want, right?
Well, exactly. If you take out your competition, then you can jack those prices up. And, we're seeing that locally, bringing it back to local issues with trailer parks and lot rent. When I had a trailer in college, it was $125 a month for lot rent, which was very affordable for me. Now, lot rent cost is much or more than my first mortgage.
Yeah. Well, and the disparity between like family-owned like renter landlords and like company landlords is huge. There's a huge difference, especially in rent hikes. When you stay in an apartment for a year, they'll bump you up like an extra $50, $100, but usually these family-owned ones stay fairly cheap. So those companies are just they're looking to take as much as they can get. You know what I mean? From any source.
They absolutely are. And I do think we need to even the playing field. And I am glad there's candidates like you guys throwing your hat in the race.
Of course.
We're going to come back to this after this quick commercial break from our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in.
Smaller coins. I mean, it's one thing to invest in it for the world's falling apart and I need to be able to have something to be able to barter with. And if I have a big bullion cube, a big block, 100 ounce or whatever, it becomes difficult. But sometimes you probably have a mix in a portfolio if you want to be one of those people that take possession of it. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is an awesome question. And I always say there's a dance between price and size. So I'll kind of look at the two buckets that you want to have, covered. One is your long-term buy and hold retirement kind of type, retirement account purchase of gold and silver, the multi-year buy and hold stuff that you don't plan on taking out. You don't want to withdraw your metal from your IRA. You want to leave it in there. You want to protect yourself first and foremost. But of course, the last couple of years, protection actually pays very well, of course. So larger bullion bars, that's what my retirement account is. Okay, it's kilo bars, 100-ounce silver bars, the stuff that you'll pay the least for, because think of it as like, buying in bulk, right? The bigger the bar, the cheaper it is to make, the less you'll pay, the more ounces you'll get. Smaller items have a role in everyone's portfolio, but it's more as like an insurance product. It's not so much I'm holding it long term to make the most money. You want to have it in case of some kind of an emergency, but you don't buy insurance thinking or hoping that you need it. You buy it in case you do. So silver coins, I've got a bunch of them in the safe here behind me. I can go down the road and barter with the farmer for eggs or produce or meat or whatever I need in that kind of disaster scenario. So you want to have the insurance bucket ticked. That's the smaller, more transactional type of bullion items that you want at home, at your fingertips at all times. But then the longer term buy and hold, retirement account, wealth preservation type stuff, you want to be in the larger, bigger products that'll allow you to buy more ounces. That's our strategy and that's what we work with. And everyone's got a little bit of a different situation. So finding that balance between price and size is our goal and working with every client.
Hello, my name is Patrick Hart. Thank you for making it through that commercial break. Today on Open Range, I have Taylor Johnson, who's running for District 35 House, and Cole Montoya for District 47 House. And I think, Taylor, maybe we're going to give you some time. Can you just maybe tell us about yourself? Tell us why you're running.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Taylor Johnson. I was raised here in Bismarck, graduated from Century High School, and I decided I wanted to study public health because I wanted to use my nerdy love for statistics to help as many people as possible. But I can only do so much in my day job. And I think now is the time for younger voices to get involved in politics. And I really want to bring that perspective to the legislature and make sure that we're bringing a, data-driven, bipartisan approach to politics.
Absolutely. So I am just going to jump in it. I don't want to be aggressive with this, but you're young. However, I read your education Bachelor of Arts in Public Health Studies from Johns Hopkins University, which by the way is in Baltimore. Master of Health Science and Mental Health from Johns Hopkins School of Public Health in 2022. Research Assistance for Gun Violence Shootings during undergraduate masters, and Senior Research Data Analysis at Johns Hopkins. That is quite the resume.
Thank you.
So in addition to that, what makes you qualified to run? What makes you your candidate of choice?
I appreciate you being too kind about my education and my work experience. But I think truly the important qualifications for running are, having the correct priorities, right? Being willing to fight for your constituents and not get dragged into distractions in politics. I'm thinking of like getting weighed down by the lobbyists or falling into culture war debate traps. And I don't think those qualifications are determined by age. I think it's determined by character. And I look forward to proving to folks that I do have that character.
Oh, I absolutely love that. So why now? What was your impetus to get you involved? What brought you off of the couch and the keyboard to make a difference in society today?
Absolutely. So in studying public health, I just was shocked by how many different aspects of our lives are touched by politics. Whether or not we have a safe enough neighborhood to get our steps in, or whether or not we can afford to go to the primary care provider for our routine or cancer screenings, all of this is touched by politics. And I think the most honestly terrifying example of this that I learned during grad school was reading a paper about the impacts of Medicaid expansion. So for the folks that don't know, Medicaid is our low-income public insurance option. And as a part of the Affordable Care Act, states could elect to either expand their eligibility pool for essentially raise the bar for the income eligibility. And some states opted to, some states did not. And I read a paper in grad school that demonstrated that states that expanded their eligibility pool had reduced rates of child abuse and neglect. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And for me, that was shocking. I had never thought that something like health insurance, while obviously incredibly important, I would have never predicted that impact. And to see it plain as day on in an academic paper like that just showed me how important politics are to every facet of our lives.
Well, when you talk about Medicaid and Medicare expansion, where my mind goes, and your example is very valuable, but Hettinger, Lisbon, Langdon, there's all these regional medical facilities. And if they're not getting government funds to help those people who want to stay in their local community and their elder years of life and to get local care, which I would argue is the best care because you know the people giving it to you, that's really going to change the North Dakota landscape. So thanks for leaning in on that. What's maybe your vision for the state of North Dakota? You've been running, you've been doing your research, you've been out talking to constituents. What have you put together for a vision for where we're going?
Yeah, I like to tell folks that I want North Dakota to be the best place in the country, the best state in the country to live, work, and raise a family, right? And just prioritize policies that will make us a great state to live in and make folks want to move here and be able to stay here. Like with your example of making sure that our rural healthcare is strong enough that folks don't have to leave just because they can't get the care they need.
Certainly. Well, yeah, and I grew up in a small town, 700 people. I don't know why I left. I love that I did. I love my life. But when I look back at childhood, it was amazing growing up in rural North Dakota, and I don't know why more people don't take advantage of that. What's it been like on your campaign trail?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. The campaign trail has been a great opportunity to meet folks either through, so far, calling them on the phone or at events. I'm really excited to start door knocking today, actually. And I've learned a lot in talking with folks. I'm sensing a common theme of frustration, and that frustration does stem from the cost of living that we keep talking about. and folks don't have the time or the energy to think much outside of how am I going to, pay for groceries this month. And I think it's our job as candidates and then hopefully as legislators to ease that economic pressure so that folks can, follow their dreams. They're not stuck in a job they don't like and not starting a business that would, bring them happiness because of health insurance concerns or cost. And that's our job as legislators would be.
A good friend of mine, Zach Rackner, made a point this morning on Facebook about how having healthcare for all, free healthcare is really going to boost economic development because it'll let people have that opportunity or have one less barrier of entry on being an entrepreneur. And that was my biggest issue when I jumped from working at the state to working for myself, is for about a year, me and my family didn't have healthcare.
Yeah.
What are maybe some ideas that you have that we can get further closer to that goal?
Absolutely. So when it comes to bringing down healthcare costs, I see, a two-pronged approach that we need to take. We need to improve access to health insurance, since that is how the vast majority of us pay for our care. But at the same time, health insurance is skyrocketing partially because the cost of services themselves are also skyrocketing. So it's a vicious cycle that we need to be innovative about stopping. So it's a combination of both expanding access to care and access to coverage, while also taking a hard look at where can the state intervene to, regulate some of these skyrocketing costs of care.
Sure. What have maybe you been doing to prepare for office or session when you get elected this fall?
Absolutely. Quick shout out to North Dakota Monitor for sending me local headlines to my inbox every morning. I think that has been incredibly helpful to get more informed on local issues. And also just, I'm running in District 35, which is a very urban district, but I think as someone who grew up in Bismarck, I do want to make sure I am aware across, not just thinking of urban problems, but also making sure that I'm aware of the problems facing rural constituents too.
Well, certainly. So in this primary, you didn't have a primary challenger within the Democratic Party. Was your opponent, did they have a primary challenge, or would they run uncontested too?
Nope, it was an uncontested primary across the board.
So you're, you know who you're running against. Tell us, do you have a plan in place, or what's the organization look like behind the scenes?
Yeah, so just to give some context for my race, I'm running against two incumbents who have been in their seats. Karen Carls has been in her seat for 20 years. Oh. Bob Martinson has been in the legislature for a total of, last I checked, 50 years. So I think my pitch, and again, I'm not in the business of mudslinging, but my pitch is that tough problems require fresh solutions. And I think that everyone can agree that the status quo needs change. And I'm willing to work for that change and advocate. And I would say that my race is a great chance for change.
Well, and my question would really be, what do you have left to accomplish after 30 years, 20 years of being in office? What new ideas are you trying to fix?
Yeah, especially in a state that just approved term limits, right? And I try not to be too aggressive about this, but if it were me and I had had that level of tenure in office, and then during that time, the voters approved term limits, and my tenure had exceeded the term limits that were approved, I would not be running again, because I respect the will of the people and am willing to respect the message that is conveyed through citizen-initiated ballot measures, because that is our clearest message to cut through partisan noise and just listen to the will of the voters.
Well, what's interesting to me about the will of the voters is that as these initiated measures get passed, it seems that once it gets given to the legislative body, it gets tweaked and changed and altered to meet their needs. And I think later in our fourth segment, we're going to talk about ethics and the implementation of the ethics committee. But the big year next year in next cycle is when all these term limits start being impacted, if they don't continue to monkey with that. What are your thoughts? Are term limits a good thing? Was that an initiated measure? 8 years, is that long enough in each chamber?
I think from my perspective, I would be happy with 8 years personally. I'm open to some of the debate about, institutional knowledge, but at the same time, in a state like ours where the power seems so entrenched with incumbents, I think it's really important to, encourage that healthy competition and also, hold legislators to a timeline to deliver for their constituents. Your campaign should be talking about, here's what I'm going to do for you, and then your time in office should be delivering on those promises. And if you're not continuing to have your campaign values be your values while you're in elected office, and you're not continuing to produce results for your constituents, it's time to go.
I love it. Keeping candidates and electeds accountable with Taylor Johnson here running for District 35 House. Back after these commercial breaks.
So we talk about silver, and we talk about the concept of using it from the health perspective. How did you, Jeffrey Adam, come back to the silver as being that health product, and how does it differ, Mycronic silver that is, differ from the other products that are maybe saying they're made with silver as well?
Well, I was blessed enough to meet a gentleman who was a nuclear biochemical engineer. He was proclaimed one of 8 in the world. And he introduced me to silver when I had gotten pneumonia. And it was actually my 4th time in 6 years getting pneumonia. And every time I got sick, it basically took about 3 months to get over. And, massive amounts of prednisone and Z-Paks and a whole lot of money to take 6 months to be fully recovered, where I got my wind back. And when he introduced me to the silver product he had that he made himself, literally in 3 days, the next morning, the pain in my lungs was gone. And in 3 days, I was where it took me 6 months of antibiotics to get to. And that's when I was like, well, we really need to start doing something with this. And this gentleman said, no, they will kill you. They don't want you to have it. You're affecting their profits. And that's when I started doing the deep dive into a colloidal silver, which was used for thousands of years. And then as it progressed, they went to an ionic silver, which is a silver ion, not a particle. And then from there, they went to a nano silver, which is a nano particle of silver. And through my education through this gentleman, I learned that, as you're looking with particles of silver, the colloidal silver, when you hear these stories of people turning blue with a condition called ageria, it was from particles that were over 10 parts per million. So when you do a colloidal silver over 10 parts per million, they start forming bigger structures. I equate them to biofilms. They're not actually a biofilm, but they create larger clusters that aren't absorbed into the body. And then people would go out in the sun and it would dye their skin a bluish gray color. And then I looked into a nano silver, and nanos are particles, and they're subatomic particles, and they're changed with static electricity or current, because you can't spin a metal or a mineral fast enough to break it apart. And they're changed with current. Well, when you're sick, your body becomes acidic, and your bodies are polar. So if it's changed with current, it can be flipped or made toxic with current too. So I stayed away from the nano silvers. So that just left the silver ions. And these products have been used for hundreds of years. When it came to the ion and any silver, it's only active in the body for 6 to 8 minutes. When I developed Mycronic silver, we made a product that is actually active for 8 to 10 hours. And there's a whole big story behind it.
Oh my gosh, what an episode. Thank you for tuning in beyond that commercial break. Today, my name is Patrick Hart. Thanks for watching. We have Taylor Johnson, District 35 House, and Cole Montoya, District 47 House. Did I hit that name right? Did I say it right?
Cole Montoya. There you go.
So Cole, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
I like to say I am about as normal as a person as it gets, honestly, which I'd like to think is actually my best quality. I was born in Colorado. I'd moved here not too long ago to work in North Dakota. And I graduated school for television production and with an associate's degree, excuse me, from Ames down in Colorado. And I moved up here. I just wanted to work for a while. Unfortunately, I graduated in the year 2024 when the last presidential election happened. So I'm here mostly because I'm pretty sick pretty quick of everything that was going on. But yeah, I'm just somebody who wants to help out, somebody who likes to sit and listen.
Well, you know, on your bio, I'll share this. Cole says the pertinent lesson in community work has always been that the more people see a problem, the faster it can be resolved, especially if those eyes are able to coordinate in the same place. That stood out. That hit hard. And I guess with that, I would ask, what is the pertinent lesson?
Well, I think, and everybody's been saying it for years, long before I was even born, the idea that we need to shed this idea of two parties being the issue. I don't personally believe that the Republican Party is the overarching issue. I believe that a lot of it is funneled into them right now, and a lot of them are not making it easy, you know. But I don't think that it's ever been a party's fault. It's always been money. It's always been people in the power who want to stay in power, and a lot of people from a long, long time ago who have been holding on to that. May it be from oil tycoons, you know, big business. They've always had too strong of a grip, and I think people are starting to realize that. And I think a lot more people are getting their eye on that specific problem, thankfully.
Well, you know, my personal leadership style is I like to give the power away. I like to empower people to put them in roles to achieve to their best. And maybe we are saying that as I say that, except maybe that power is being given to the wrong people that are representing billionaires, trillionaires.
Yes. Well, that's the thing, is the power is being bought, right? It's not that a lot of people are going in, you know, untrustworthy. I'm sure a lot of people who get elected want to go in and do change and make stuff better for the people. They had a reason to be in there, but unfortunately, that dollar sign is a lot more attractive when you're making so much of it, right? You have a bigger incentive to help yourself rather than help all the people that you swore to help, right? Especially the longer you're in it and the more people start throwing money towards your campaign and your stay there. So it really does come down a lot to what big business and what people with the biggest amount of cash want done, and how sturdy your resolve is to not listen to that, right?
No, I love it. What do you really think, like, as we talk about society, business, government, what do you think the role of government is in society right now?
I'll say this, especially because I'm an American, happy 250. This is the country where we all have the equal right to stand around and do whatever we want. We should be allowed to do that. Obviously, making money, more money than another because of how hard you worked, is totally fine. I think that comes with the side of freedom. But our government should make sure that everybody is fed, housed, and able to do so. We need to make sure that our country is constantly moving forward. That's the whole point of the freedom. That's the whole point of capitalism without corruption, is everybody is moving to create the best product, that being just progress generally, as not only a country, but as a species, you know, which, you know, when we're getting stuff done, we're getting stuff done. It's just when the government turns into an internal fight for power, we lose what government is for. And here in America, I believe that government is to make sure that we're all able to get what we need to get done for the betterment of not only the country, but ourselves.
You know, I like where you put, you should be able to make the best product
Mhm.
and put that out there. I think what we're seeing, and we touched on it in the opening segment, is that the shrewd business practices
Mhm.
maybe are going a different direction for market share. Instead of making a better product, instead of looking at internal structures and systems to make, a cheaper product,
Mhm.
they're buying out their competition. They're becoming conglomerates,
Right.
and then at the end of the day, maybe they're losing fact of what they're there for, and they're putting
Right.
an onus on their employees to work for less. They're harvesting resources in an unnatural manner.
Well, a lot of these people are really after just for the biggest number, right?
Right.
Is what do you need? If I had $1 billion right now, I guarantee you I could solve a lot of problems with $1 billion on my own. So never mind what Elon's now worth. He doesn't have $1 trillion. I get that, but being worth $1 trillion is it would put a dent in our national debt. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Is there's so much that these people can do, and not just globally or nationally, but here in the state, there are big businesses coming here and living here that have the ability to make change if they chose to do so.
Sure.
And going back to kind of what the government is supposed to do for the people in a society, it does seem that in a perfect world, those people would go out to do that on their own. They would just have the inkling to do that, right? Be philanthropists, do what they need to do. But unfortunately, we don't see that. And maybe it would be good for the role of government to be like, hey, they built these businesses themselves, but once you have enough money, give back to your government, give back to your community. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
No, I remember growing up as a kid, a young entrepreneur in Fargo made a sprinkler that went around a tree,
Mm-hmm.
and he made X amount of money with it. I couldn't tell you. This story's 30 years old, but he sent in his share of the national debt to the government so he wouldn't be on that stock ticker that shows that your debt load is now $110,000
Yeah.
per person. He
Mhm.
took that upon himself at a very young age to do that. And I think that people could
Right.
for the betterment of society. Now, I got to call out a special billionaire, Mackenzie Scott, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, divorced him. And unfortunately, that's how the richest woman in America got her money. But she's given that away at an unprecedented amount. As a matter of fact, a bunch of money landed in Fargo at the YMCA for
Yeah.
that. So we do have some good actors as well.
Well, there's always going to be, and unfortunately, this might be just my youth talking, but from what it seems like, there's no good billionaires besides those that stand out. But to make $1 billion, you need to step on 10 billion toes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's just an unfortunate reality of what it is. They're on a level that they're so disconnected from us that there needs to be a change. There's no reason for, what is it, about 2,000 people to be in charge of how I can eat. You know what I mean? I can barely afford rent and food, but these people who are so disconnected from me are making those decisions on whether I can even afford medicine to do so. And that's just not, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't know that Culber's moral dilemma on how you afford your medication is really a fun ethical journey. To kind of bring it back a level, and I love our conversation, but what's maybe your vision? What are your top 3 campaign pillars?
Well, I think the biggest ones for me have been housing, and obviously the data centers are a big issue. I'm a big nature man. I love how North Dakota looks. It is a beautiful state, I must say. And if I had to think of a third, unfortunately, housing has been like the big thing for me. I've also wanted to advocate. Definitely healthcare is something huge, especially it sounds like out here in rural communities. Can I tack a fourth on there?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know I live in District 47, not as rural as the rest of North Dakota, but farmers, making sure that farmers are able to be making a livable wage. I could go off about the Strait of Hormuz for 1,000 reasons, but a big one has definitely been the fertilizer, the nitrogen shortage that is going to hit us, especially come planting season.
Yeah.
just making sure everybody can get what they need.
Well, you know, on that nitrogen shortage, we've been flaring, you know, propane, natural gas for years. We've been flaring it. We can capture that, turn that into fertilizer here in North Dakota.
Now, well, and here's an idea I did like rattling around in my head. The possibility of an industry out here in North Dakota of creating your own fertilizer, right? It would not only be able to sell to the farmers, we would have it locally. It would help our economy fair bit, just especially for farming states, being able to make our own nitrogen, and it would take a load off from having to rely on it coming in from overseas.
Absolutely, and I think the DGC up in Beulah has a really good program that does create that anhydrous ammonia locally, and I don't know why we can't do more of that. Create a secondary production facility to try to capture another market. Got about 30 seconds left. Any last words you want to maybe say?
Don't not trust the system. It works, but you need to let it work, and you have to be the one that takes care of it. I am one man. I just speak the loudest, and you need to tell me what to think, because you're actually in charge. Don't give up your power. That's my 10 cents.
Cole Montoya running for House in District 47. We'll be back after this quick break.
Hey y'all, it's Brent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza. Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
We are the St. Mary Sisters. We are building a new facility here in Bismarck, North Dakota, for the sake of training young women to be courageous teachers in this state. The sisters will educate the younger generation to be fully alive through truth and discipline. The sisters' life of devotion and joy will make a positive difference in your community. Check out what we're up to, see what's going on, and join our mission to make a difference in the lives of the children of North Dakota.
Ashley, North Dakota is where life moves a little slower, but never gets dull. From hunting, camping, and fishing to safe streets where kids can be kids, this is the best of small town living. And Ashley offers everything you need, from healthcare to hardware to countless ways to stay active. Here, we've invested in our future with major upgrades to roads, parks, and education. Whether you're here for the day or here for life, you'll find Ashley's where you ought to be.
There's never been a better time to rediscover the style, reliability, and all-season, all-terrain fun of the all-new Nissan lineup at the new and improved Ryan Nissan. Whether it's the sleek and stylish Murano, the adventure-ready Pathfinder, or the reimagined, ready-for-anything 2026 Rogue, the all-new Ryan Nissan has the vehicle of your dreams at a price perfect for any budget. It's time to rediscover your passion for the road. It's time to rediscover the all-new Ryan Nissan, engineered to endure.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking through that commercial break. My name is Patrick Hart, the co-host, Dem-NPL Treasurer, as you can see on the screen. Today, I'm joined with Taylor Johnson, running for House in District 35, and Cole Montoya, running for House in District 47. Taylor, we mentioned kind of between segments there, the ethics survey just come out. Can you give us a heads up on that?
Absolutely. So the North Dakota Ethics Commission had a public survey where anyone in North Dakota could respond and answer about their priorities and, just general sentiment of how they feel about our state institutions and our legislators' conduct. And the results were bad, guys. People are not feeling confident in our institutions and in our legislators to act ethically. And for me, I think this is especially interesting as someone who cares deeply about the Ethics Commission as something that was, initiated and approved by the people. This is, again, just a clear message to legislators that, the people have concerns with the job that they're doing, and they should really heed that message and find ways to increase transparency and accountability in our state government so that we can trust them to do their job.
Cole, thoughts? Have you read the report yet?
Oh yeah. I think from what I was reflecting off of it, it definitely shows that there's a big disconnect from what people want in the office versus what's in the office, right? And I don't think it's just here. I think it's seen on a national level too. There's just no trust for for who's voted in anymore, which is a shame because it makes it harder to run. Because a lot of people will think, oh, you're just running because you want this, that, or the other thing, which is really sad because if you're going to trust anybody, you have to trust your elected officials. But I understand why we don't.
Yeah, and it's kind of showing a disconnect from, the best motivation for running for office, which is public service and wanting to give back to your community and really bring all voices to the table and make decisions that benefit everyone. And our current legislature is not trusted to do that.
Well, right. And what I was kind of thinking about as you're talking about this is there's two initiated measures I have to call out. First of all, the ethics initiated measure, which is what put this organization in place. Of course, Senator Tim Mathern wanted to implement that in a very specific way where it had teeth and it had funding. Of course, that got watered down. So the citizens said, let's have an ethics committee. And during implementation, it got watered down and unfunded. Also, there's term limits. So the citizens want an accountable government. They've said so now twice. And yet we see the opposite once session hits. We're trying to water down term limits, figure out clarity on which districts and, if a half a term counts. But really, the citizens are saying the government's on the wrong track. Yeah. We need to right the course.
Well, and you wonder why, right? Is as soon as you're like, hey, we need to put these guys in check, the people that you voted in said, no, you don't. Don't worry about what we're doing. We're going to do whatever we want, and then your thing will be secondary.
Yeah. And on top of not respecting or embracing the measures that were approved by the people, they're actively trying to throw roadblocks in our way to keep sending them these messages through citizen-initiated ballot measures. I think single subject rule that just passed is a great example of this, of trying to essentially put the Secretary of State and, in my opinion, a subjective determination between what the people want in their legislative priorities and what can actually be legally implemented.
Well, let's talk about that initiated measure process too. It seems like every cycle we restrict the amount of time it takes to get signatures. We restrict how many ideas it can have on implementation. So again and again and again, what baffles me is that we have a Republican supermajority that believes in limited government, that keeps clawing power away from the people. And I can't balance that. I can't balance the disconnect.
I'll say that there's a weird disconnect between thinking that the limitation of power in government is something that you want. Having less people running the government leads to one person signing off on signatures. Having several people with high funding watching each other is checks and balances, and it keeps people employed.
Sure.
you want more eyes in the government, and you want more mouths talking about what's going on in the government. There's no reason for us to be cutting, slashing, and getting rid of all of our public workers, especially when all it leads to is less and less people making a decision that's going to impact everyone.
I think a great example of that in this week's news headline is this screw worm down in Texas.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk and Doge eliminated funding to try to release males that can't breed, flies, and that was supposed to continue to keep the screwworm population at bay. Funding got cut. Now we're having herd decimation down in Texas.
But we see this all the time. Now we do with what's the one that just came back? It was all over the U.S. Now I'm forgetting about it.
Measles?
Measles,
yeah.
yes. Measles cases in the United States. We're seeing higher rates of like depression in kids with less implementation on like mental health, because we're annihilating all these programs that are not only essential right now, but so underfunded already that it's putting us, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, as someone who works in public health, and while I don't work in the public sector, I've known folks who've lost their jobs or have lost funding. And it's really unfortunate, this kind of disconnect between, what these folks are trying to achieve. They're trying to, again, going back to this idea of public service, they're trying to use their expertise to help us. And honestly, a lot of times they're making a lot less money than they would in the private sector. Sure. So it is genuinely like a labor of love. And to cut these programs from just a lack of understanding of what they do, what these programs achieve, when all you have to do is ask. Nerds are happy to tell you what their work does and why it's important. And I think that's the issue, is there's not this understanding of, especially in public health, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, and it should be behind the scenes. If things are working great, they're working great, and then you don't have to think about it, which I think is the best case scenario.
But once you start hearing about screw worms getting into all the food, clearly something's wrong, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's a failure in my mind. I really quick want to talk about Gen Z and politics. So it's hard for anyone to step up. You guys are obviously a younger generation. What are your thoughts on what we need out of Gen Z in politics?
You're older than I am. Do you want to take this first?
Yeah, sure. So yes, I'm 27. I am Gen Z. And I think that the thing that I've learned is that, especially when it comes to local politics, everything is closer than you think. Voting for myself on the primary ballot was insane because I think growing up, I thought that in order to be on the ballot, you had to be, rich, well-connected, perfectly polished, and this stereotype of what a politician is. And I am none of those things. Sure. And I think that sometimes we have these preconceived notions on what it means to run for office or even just get involved, that I really want to hope to demystify that and show that, you don't have to come from a political family or something like that to truly make a difference.
Well, you do if you want to enrich the state, right?
Yeah.
Yourself.
Cole, thoughts on Gen Z and politics?
So I'm 22, and I have always been fairly in tune. I grew up in a fairly political family. Mom was a liberal, dad was conservative, classic story. But growing up, all I was able to pick up on was how screwed I was, be it between rising costs, fractures in our society, trust dwindling, this, that, and the other thing. And it just makes the world, it made not just me, but a lot of people in my generation hate wanting to be involved in politics, thinking that it's worthless and pointless. Thankfully, I'm more stubborn than that. And I'm a little more, am I allowed to say pissed?
Aye.
I think I'm a little more pissed off than a lot of my fellow Gen Zers.
Yeah.
So I think that it is definitely important that we get involved now, especially for how much crap that we talk about the older generations. And not doing anything about it is just something that we cannot do anymore. The time to push stuff back and keep kicking down the can down the road is over. We are at the end of the road, and the can is sitting right in front of us. And we need to do something. We needed to do something 10 years ago. And now here we are. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha, we need younger people running. We need people to be involved in this, and we need people to be angry about it.
I love it. We got 1 minute left. Taylor, can I give you 30 seconds to make your pitch on why you're the best candidate?
Absolutely. I recognize the gravity of this moment in politics, and I am ready to work hard to meet that moment. I want to lead with empathy and with determination to just make North Dakota a better place to be.
You got my vote. Cole, 30 seconds.
I'll say if some random guy can just walk into a room and be able to get this far, imagine what we can get done together with all of you behind me, or more accurately, everyone beside each other, marching this march.
I love it. You guys, we got a couple great Democratic candidates. They definitely earned my vote today. I hope they earned yours too. We'll see you next week on another episode of Open Range.